what I like to say is that my story of doing all this is really a love story, is what I call it. And it's a story of following my heart. Having the courage to finally follow my heart. When I got involved back in the Catholic Church at the age of, I was probably about 28 years old, so my late 20s, I realized that the Catholic Church was where my heart was at. And it sort of rekindled the idea of me as a little boy wanting to be an altar server, but not really being encouraged to do it. So by the time I got to be, in my late 20s, early 30s, I became really active in the church again. And I remember the first day that I got to altar serve as an adult. It was like a big moment for me. It was and I still remember the day that I put on, the alb and I processed down the aisle for Mass. It just felt so right for me. And that was one of the moments that sort of started to let me know, wow, this is what God has called me to. And it was a series of doing a lot of those little things in ministry and in the church that reaffirmed that this truly was what God was calling me to do. So it was being involved back in the church, and ultimately it was being involved in a community that supported me and that helped me to see the gifts that I brought to the table. So, one of the important things about following a vocation is that, they always say too, it's not something that necessarily just comes from you, but it's something that comes from the community at large, where they can affirm it. And that's what happened to me. So I would be started to get involved in young adult ministry, and I would do talks, or I would be involved in leadership, and people saw something in me that would affirm the voice that I was hearing internally inside of my heart and my head. They would say, wow, that we see something there. And so there was a collision of both my internal calling and what people started to see externally as well. But it wasn't easy for me to accept the call. I rejected it for a very long time. I was very resistant because there's a lot of fear that comes with this. I would say the moment that really changed my life was on a Holy Thursday. So a Holy Thursday, they do a ritual where they do the washing of the feet. In that ritual, the presider, the priest, acts in the person of Christ. So it's basically a reenactment of what Jesus did for his disciples on his Last Supper. And they had asked me, they said, send me a letter from my parish that they wanted to do this for me. And I remember just having such a hard time even fathoming the idea, because I was like, there's no way that I'm not worthy of this. This is something that I don't deserve. Do it for somebody else. And in that rejection, I realized that I was a lot like Peter. And Peter, in this account, we see Peter being so afraid of being approached by Jesus in this way. He rejects Christ as well. He has a hard time accepting this sort of positioning of Christ under him as a servant. And ultimately for me, what it was my fear of rejecting Jesus as the person who wants to be my person, who gives me my identity. And what I like to think about in that story is that Peter is really not just rejecting Jesus washing his feet. Peter is rejecting Jesus loving him. And for me, that's the realization that I came to, is that my whole life, in some way, I had rejected Christ and Jesus, specifically Jesus loving me. And for me, that moment, when I went into it, it was not just about getting my feet washed or about this priest doing this act for me. I saw it really as a moment where I was accepting Jesus as a person who was going to be my God and the person who loved me. And I always say that from that moment on, sort of like the hard doors of my heart were in a way opened up. And when I opened up my heart to Jesus loving me, then sort of the rest of my life sort of unfolded, and the next steps of my life became being open to the call. So really, I think that all of us have a story in our lives. You know, when we're all made in the image of God, and we're all made with a story to tell. I was made with a story to tell. And my story couldn't be told because the beginning of my story was rooted in something else. It was when I became rooted in my true identity as a beloved Son of God, then my story began to unfold. And my purpose and why I was brought to this earth started to be revealed to me. And that sort of brought me to the decision that my purpose was to be a priest.
I am light, I am light.